Okay, so this is a piece of work by an artist called Mankus. As you can see, she creates these photographic portraits, but then she's kind of worked on top with a wide range of media. So if you look carefully, I can see what looks to be hessian, which is kind of like sackcloth that you might get potatoes in. I can see kind of glue marks, what seem to be different kind of paint effects or stains. So we're trying to create this kind of collage, mixed media kind of effect that kind of makes this look very old, distressed. So what we're going to use, first of all, before we use our own photographs, we're going to do a tester with a couple of portraits that I've printed up for you. So you can choose whichever one you want to use. So I think I'm going to start with this one. And then you really need to just find any bits of materials or equipment that might be useful. So watercolours, a brush, chalk, wax pastel or oil pastel, even unusual things like coffee can be useful. You'll need some PVA glue, and again any other materials. So I've got a wet wipe from here, because we can kind of tear that and get kind of that kind of material effect. I've got some corrugated card, which again we can kind of tear up, tissue paper, and even just an old newspaper if I want to put any lettering in there. So it's not necessarily about trying to recreate exactly the same image, but it's about taking inspiration from this artist's work. So let's just have a go really, let's just kind of see what happens. So I'm just going to, I think first of all, I'm going to sprinkle it. You don't have to necessarily do this, but it's a good way of straight away creating some kind of texture to the work. You could try even then kind of just capturing the top of some of those areas, or kind of rubbing over with a crayon. You could put a bit of water on top, and you could either use maybe some kind of like a brown or sepia kind of colour. So I'm going to go for this kind of gold colour, and then just kind of again just kind of brush that on top and see kind of what happens. So it's almost like you're kind of staining with your coffee. I have got some coffee here, so I might actually give that a go. If you don't have coffee at hand, as I said, you could use watercolours. So let's just see what happens if I dip a bit of this in on top. Just got to sprinkle that over the top. And we'll add a bit more water to that. As you can see, that's starting to kind of spread out a little bit. You get these kind of speckled effects on there. So what I might do now is actually let's just squeeze a bit of glue on. Just need to make sure I've got that kind of big brush. Let's just kind of mix that over. You could try sprinkling the coffee on top of the glue. That might be actually quite a good effect. So I'm just putting plenty of glue on, so I can then start to add some more textures on top. So I might actually take a little bit of this material and let's kind of just build that over and see what happens. So I'm going to cover up some of that. So I want these torn kind of edges. Doesn't really matter too much what the shape is, but it just adds some texture to to the piece. So let's do a couple of kind of strips, see how that looks. So on the Sally Mankus piece, it kind of frames the photo, so I might just do a bit more, maybe across the top. So I could also use a bit of tissue paper, crunch that up. So that. And again, you want to scrumple it up a little bit, so it's not perfectly smooth. Put a bit more glue on there. Just try a bit more of that over the top of the face. Mix a bit more glue with that. And so you can see quite quickly we're getting this kind of nice textured effect. I want a little bit more colour kind of in this though, so I'm going to go back to my coffee. I think I'm going to sprinkle a bit more of this on in places and just see how that looks. So that will kind of soak into these different materials. They should kind of start to pick up some of the textures on top as well, which will work quite nicely. So if we look at Sally Mankus's work, you've also got some of these kind of reds and peach kind of colours. So we could go back to our watercolours and just kind of add kind of a little bit of kind of colour, maybe to the cheeks and the nose and the face a little bit. So we're being quite specific where we put it, we're not just kind of putting it all over, just so it adds a bit of kind of colour to that face there. And again, it's going to pick up the texture underneath so it looks a bit more interesting. Pick up on his lips, on the side of the face and the nose again. We could, the corrugated card, obviously it's not opaque, so it's going to cover up where you put it. So I'd use that quite sparingly. But again, as maybe around the edge somewhere, I think that could just add something else. So I'm just going to add some of that on top here. Just spread that out a little bit. So I'm not going to add too much of that. And we could go back into that with some colour, just to kind of mix it in with what we're doing here. Just to tone it down a little bit. So I actually use a little bit of blue in here as well, which I might add some more in the background there. You don't add too much in the way of colour, but a little bit here and there will actually add to the piece in the end. And already I think this is getting there. I think I'd still like some stronger spots of kind of colour. I like this bit here and down here. I think that adds something to the work. You could, if you wanted to, add some lettering. So it's kind of finding really something that would work. If you're doing that, look for kind of just black and white, rather than like the coloured images. So I might go I quite like the word season on here, so I'm going to go with that. So I might add that in. Yeah, let's add this down here. Okay. So just move that up a little bit. Just add a bit of glue on top of that. Just got to push that back a little bit more. We could maybe put a bit more of the tissue paper on top. Just so it kind of covers up some of the lettering and adds a bit of texture to that. Just so you can't see then all of the kind of letters coming through, we just add something else to it. And I might add a little bit more coffee in this case here. And just kind of dab that in. And so as you can see, that works quite well. There's quite a lot going on there. A few different effects that you can write about, so you can talk about the different materials that you've used. And then you can use then some of the best techniques that you like from this piece when you come to use your own photographs.